Chapter 7 Order and Chaos. Ashworth Intermediate School was a big outfit, and when you put 450 kids, mostly between the ages of 9 and 12, under one roof, a certain amount of hubbub and clutter is normal, and therefore Room 27 was not normal. Room 27 at Ashworth School was never messy, never loud. Room 27 was always like a peaceful island, an oasis of order and calm. That's because the small kingdom known as Room 27 was controlled by Mr. Anthony Xenotopoulos, who, for obvious reasons, was known simply as Mr. Z. Mr. Z was a man of average size, except perhaps for his head, which seemed a bit too large for his body. But that might have been an optical illusion caused by the burst of black and gray hair spiraling out 1 or 2 inches in all directions. Apart from his unruly hair, Mr. Z dressed neatly, but not formally. He wore coat and tie only for end-of-year assembly. The rest of the time, he wore khakis or corduroys and loose-fitting collared shirts, carefully ironed. He had piercing dark eyes and a bright smile, which made it harder to notice the large nose that lived between them. Mr. Z taught 6th graders, and in his kingdom, mathematics ruled. Everything about his room, including its legendary calmness, was a function of math. Mr. Z did not just teach 6th grade math, he lived math. He breathed and ate and slept and dreamed math. His wife taught geometry at the high school, so you could even say that he had married math. Plus, their only son was an engineering major at the State University. For Mr. Z, math was the source of all that was beautiful, good, and true. Math controlled the orbits of the planets, always in perfect stressless balance. Math was frictionless. Math supplied the principles that sent rockets past the moon and helped Beethoven create his symphonies. Mr. Z believed that even the smile of the Mona Lisa, like the spiral of the chambered nautilus, could be expressed as a ratio, a set of elegant numbers. The alarm clock, the thermometer, the calendar, the digital watch on his wrist, the odometer in his car, the test and quiz scores of his students, the percentage points of his grading scale, these gave him the numbers he lived by. He woke each day at 6:15, school or no school. Channel 7's weather forecasts were the most accurate. He'd done a 3-year study himself. So a predicted high temperature of 70 degrees or warmer equaled khaki pants plus a short sleeve shirt. 69 degrees or below equaled corduroys plus long sleeves. And for a high temperature of 40 degrees or lower, plus 1 sweater. Mr. Z put his heavy down coat into storage on March 1st and got it out again on October 1st. He had an appointment at the barber shop every 3rd Thursday at 4:15 p.m. He changed the oil in his white Toyota Camry every 5,500 miles, and when the odometer reached 110,000 miles, the 20th oil change, he and his wife began shopping for a new white Camry. Why a Camry? Math. The Camry was the car that cost the least amount of dollars, had the most features he could afford, and had the fewest service problems. Why white? Well, again, math. White was the color that kept the inside temperature of a car lowest in the summer. When running the air conditioner meant buying more gas and getting fewer miles per gallon. There were 185 school days per year and 55 minutes in each class period. Mr. Z wrote the number of remaining minutes of math class on the board at the start of each school day, beginning at 10,175. Quiz scores counted once, and test scores counted twice. Grade percentages were calculated out to 3 decimal places, then rounded up, and arguing about grades was pointless. Numbers never lied. Mr. Z had a sense of humor, but it was a mathematical sense of humor. He wasn't witty or clever, but he had an almost endless supply of math puns. What did the triangle say to the circle? Your life seems so pointless. What did the 90-degree angle say to the 91-degree angle? Don't be so obtuse. What did the plus sign say to the minus sign? You're always so negative. Why didn't the rectilinear equilateral like jazz? He was a square. And so was Mr. Z. If Mr. Z seemed stiff or set in his ways or rigid in his views, that was a function of math as well. In math, there were fixed rules. Math involved pure operations that required no bending, no guesswork, no emotional adjustments, only the glide and flow of intelligence. There were always answers, right answers, and it was possible to understand exactly what was right about them. And that's why Mr. Z loved math. Loved, not liked, not enjoyed, not appreciated, loved. He loved thinking about math. He loved using it, and most of all, he loved teaching it. Math was perfect. Math clarified the jumbled minds and disciplined the untidy lives of his students. So many things change constantly. Politics, weather, the price of energy, the cover of Time magazine, not math. As he told his students, now and forever, 2 plus 2 will always equal 4, every single day. But on this particular day, with 9,790 minutes of math class remaining in his 6th grade year, Greg Kitten came stomping into the orderly world of room 27 with a head full of chaos. He walked straight over to Maura Shaw and slapped the eensy-beensy book down onto her desk, and through clenched teeth he said, nice ripoff. You are such a thief. You stole my idea and you know it. So stop it. Stop it now. Maura jumped up, nose to nose with Greg. Oh, sure. Like you invented paper and drawings, and words too, right? Just so you know, anybody can make anything they want to, and they can sell stuff too. It's a free country, like for over 200 years. Or, hadn't you heard? Mr. Z looked up from his grade book, saw the disturbance in aisle 4, and got to his feet. Speaking as he moved, he was at the scene in 3 seconds. All right there. Easy does it. Greg, lower your voice. Maura, you too. And sit down. Now what's this about? Simple. Greg opened his pencil case and said, I started making these great little comic books, and now she's ripping me off with her stupid imitation. She's using my idea, and it's like she's stealing money right out of my pocket. He pointed at the unicorn book on her desk. That's what this is about. Maura shook her head. What it's about is that you're a greedy little money grubber, just like always. Mine, all mine. That's all you ever care about. That's a lie. All right, said Mr. Z. Calm down. But Maura was on her feet again. It's true, and poor little Greg can't stand it when somebody else has a good idea. Greg snorted and grabbed the eensy-beensy book. Yeah, right. Like this is a good idea. You know what this is? Garbage. Cheap, stupid garbage. Just like you. And Greg ripped the front cover off The Lost Unicorn and threw it in Maura's face. Both of you, stop this. Just stop it. It was like Mr. Z had disappeared. All Maura could see was her little book as Greg began to tear off another page. Give me that! She swung her right arm to grab for it, and Greg yanked the book up above his head. And as Maura's hand followed the moving book, the bottom 3 knuckles of her right hand connected with a sharp crack against the left side of Greg's nose. Greg's mouth dropped open. So did Mr. Z's and Maura's. There was a half-second of stunned silence, and then, ow! Greg clutched his nose, which began to bleed, dripping onto Maura's desk. Room 27, usually quieter than the library, flashed to life. Did you see that? What? Where? Maura! She pounded him! No way! I saw it! Look at his nose! Oh, blood! And amid all the other noise, Maura squeaked out, Oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to. Really, I didn't. Mr. Z wanted to take charge. He wanted to quiet the room, calm Maura, and get Greg to the nurse. But there was blood. Numbers never bleed, which Mr. Z believed was one of their best qualities, because just the word blood was enough to make him start looking for a chair so he could sit and put his head between his knees. Mr. Z turned away from Greg, already woozy, his face going gray, but as he slumped into the nearest empty desk, swallowing hard, he managed to say, "Maura, please help Greg," to the nurse. I'll be here." Maura rushed to the front of the room, yanked 5 or 6 tissues from the box on Mr. Z's desk, and hurried back to Greg. "Here." Greg accepted the tissues, but when Maura took his elbow and began steering him toward the hallway, he jerked his arm free and made his own way out the door. It was bad enough he'd just gotten a bloody nose from a girl. No way he was going to let that same girl turn around and help him. Maura stopped at the doorway of the nurse's office, and Mrs. Emmett took charge. Sitting Greg on the black vinyl cot, she grabbed a plastic cold pack from a cabinet and smacked it on her desk 3 or 4 times to activate the crystals. She pulled on a pair of pale green gloves, took a paper towel, and got it wet at the sink and began to clean up Greg's face. "Lean forward." The nurse took the cold pack and wrapped it in a damp washcloth. Leaning over, she looked at the marks on Greg's skin and then pressed a cold pack gently against his face. Mrs. Emmett said, "How did this happen?" It would have been so easy for Greg to lift his bloody hand, point a crimson finger, and shout, "Maura did it! She slugged me right in the nose! Hard!" He could have yelled it so loud that the principal across the hall would have heard him. But he didn't. He mumbled, "It was an accident. Somebody grabbed for something and I got in the way." The nurse lifted the cold pack and touched Greg's nose carefully with her gloved fingers. He flinched. Mrs. Emmett said, "It's not broken, but you're going to have a black eye, a real prize winner. You need to stay here till I'm sure the bleeding has stopped." She pressed the cold pack back in place and said, "Put your left hand here and press not too hard." Greg did as he was told. Turning to the doorway, Mrs. Emmett said, "Maura, did you get any blood on you?" Maura looked at her hands and down her front. She shook her head. "Anywhere else?" asked the nurse. "Where did this happen?" "In Mr. Z's room. Some drops got on a desk and maybe on the floor." Mrs. Emmett nodded. "I'll send the custodian with disinfectant. You should get back to class now." Maura hesitated. It was nice Greg hadn't blamed her, and she wanted him to turn and look at her. She wanted at least to nod thanks at him. But Greg kept his eyes shut, so Maura turned and left. Mrs. Emmett said, "Greg, I have to go find the custodian. You can lean back on those pillows now, but stay still, all right?" And she was gone. The whole side of Greg's face throbbed as he eased himself back. Great, a black eye. From a girl. Just what I always wanted. What Maura had said in Mr. Z's room came back to him. "You're a greedy little money grubber, just like always." Those words hurt. Those words hurt worse than his nose. His big brothers had been calling him stingy and greedy for years. Is that what they all think? That I'm a money grubber? Everybody wants a lot of money, right? What's wrong with that? Can I help it if I have good ideas and that I'm willing to work? There's nothing wrong with that.